You've probably heard plenty of stories painting the Lone Star State as some kind of financial oasis, a place where your paycheck finally gets to stay in your pocket. Maybe you're already picturing yourself loading up the moving truck, imagining a life with zero state income tax, and dreaming about how much wealthier you'll feel once you settle in Texas. But before you sign off on that shiny new construction home and celebrate your fresh start, there's a harsh truth you need to hear, one that most real estate agents tiptoe around. Sure, the state won't touch your income, but county tax offices are more than ready to make up the difference. Every year, like clockwork, they'll hit you with property taxes so steep they rank among the highest in the entire country. So buckle up, because we're about to take a drive through 10 spots in Texas where the American dream comes bundled with a hidden, never-ending subscription fee. And we're not talking about a couple $100 sprinkled throughout the year. In these specific zip codes, your yearly tax payment could easily rival the cost of rolling a brand new budget car off the dealership lot every single year. While the typical property tax rate across the U.S. sits around 1.1%, the communities on this list are charging residents double, and in some cases almost triple, that amount. We're going to break down the effective tax rates, look at the median home values that push these bills sky high, and walk through the jaw-dropping dollar figures homeowners are currently paying. Keep those eyes forward, because the place that lands at number 1 carries such a crushing tax load that it might make you reconsider your entire relocation plan. Before we hit the road, make sure to tap that like button and subscribe so you can follow along. And let me know in the comments whether you think these steep property taxes are worth the trade-off for living in a state with no income tax. Number 10. Sugarland. We kick off our road trip just southwest of Houston, in a city with a name that promises sweetness, but can leave your wallet feeling surprisingly sour. As you cruise past the old Imperial Sugar Refinery and weave through picture-perfect master-planned neighborhoods, the kind that look like they were designed for a film set, it's not hard to understand why people fall in love with this place. With excellent schools, beautifully maintained parks, and a polished suburban feel, Sugarland checks almost every box. But the catch? The true cost of living here is far higher than what the listing prices might lead you to believe. One of the first financial surprises newcomers face is the layered tax structure. In this part of Fort Bend County, you're rarely paying just simple city and school taxes. According to the Fort Bend Central Appraisal District, homeowners in many of these zip codes routinely hit combined tax rates that climb well above 2.2%, depending on which utility district their home falls under. And the pain doesn't stop there. While the typical American home sits around a median value of roughly $350,000, Redfin reports that homes in Sugarland are selling closer to $465,000. So, before taxes even enter the conversation, the initial value being assessed is already thousands of dollars higher than what most buyers might expect across the country. Run the numbers, and you'll find that a standard single-family home here can easily generate an annual tax bill north of $10,200. Smart Assets research also places Fort Bend County among the top 10 counties nationwide when it comes to property taxes as a percentage of home value, a ranking most homeowners would prefer not to brag about. And if you're thinking the prices seem reasonable compared to coastal states, there's another twist: the MUDs. These municipal utility districts tack on additional taxes to fund basic infrastructure like water systems, sewage, and drainage. They're essential, but they definitely aren't cheap. A recent Texas Comptroller report points out that this region carries some of the highest local debt per resident anywhere in the state, and guess who ends up footing that bill? Yep, the taxpayers. So if you want to keep your finances from getting cavities in this deceptively sweet city, give that like button a tap to keep your wallet in good shape. Number 9. Pearland. Leaving Sugarland behind, you cut across toward Highway 288 and roll into Pearland, a booming suburb sitting just south of Houston. The moment you get into town, it's obvious this place is growing at breakneck speed. Everywhere you look, construction crews are pouring concrete, putting up brand new schools, and widening major roads to keep up with the constant flow of new residents. And while the city's expansion looks impressive, there's a not-so-subtle catch. As a homeowner, you end up funding a large part of that growth. At first glance, you might spot a spacious four-bedroom home listed around $400,000 and think you've found an incredible bargain. But the tax office is more than ready to bring you back to reality. According to the Brazoria County Appraisal District, many neighborhoods in Pearland sit at combined tax rates in the 2.3% to 2.5% range. Putting that into dollar terms, that same $400,000 home will saddle you with roughly $9,200 a year in property taxes, which breaks down to more than $760 a month stacked on top of your mortgage payment. And that's just for taxes, nothing more. Niche.com ranks Pearland as one of the fastest-growing cities in the entire country, and that kind of population boom doesn't come cheap. The school district here has had to lean heavily on large bond packages to keep up, which is why their tax rate alone regularly pushes past 1.3%, a figure higher than the total property tax rate of several states. Realtor.com's latest numbers show that housing inventory is climbing, but prices keep rising right along with it, meaning your assessed value and your tax bill will almost certainly trend upward year after year. The Tax Foundation has repeatedly pointed out that Texas homeowners shoulder some of the highest effective property tax rates in the United States, and Pearland is practically the poster child for that reality. And just like in Sugarland, many Pearland residents are also paying additional MUD taxes, which can tack on another 50 cents to a full dollar per $100 of home value. Think of it as a forever mortgage that you can never quite pay off. If these numbers caught you off guard, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on more eye-opening real estate breakdowns. Number 8. Missouri City. As you keep tracing the outer curve of the Houston Metro, you eventually roll into Missouri City, often called the Show Me City. And while the area is proud of its diverse community and its well-kept parks, what it really shows newcomers is a property tax bill that can stop you mid-stride. Driving through neighborhoods like Siena or Quail Valley, you'll notice roomy brick houses that seem to offer an impressive amount of space for the price. On the surface, it feels like you're getting a solid deal. But the real commitment isn't the purchase price, it's the yearly cost of simply holding on to that home. According to the Texas Comptroller of Public Accounts, some subdivisions here face combined tax rates that climb to 2.6% or even higher. And if you buy a place around the local median value, which Zillow puts near $360,000, you're looking at an annual tax bill of roughly $9,360. What complicates things even more is that Missouri City sits across both Harris and Fort Bend counties. The exact spot where your home lands can swing your tax rate noticeably one way or the other. But regardless of which county line you cross, the bottom line stays the same. The taxes are steep. A study by the Lincoln Institute of Land Policy notes that the city's effective property tax rate is nearly double the national average. And that's before you factor in the reality that many of the popular master-planned communities here also charge sizable HOA fees, a whole separate cost stacked onto an already heavy bill. Most of your tax dollars end up heading straight to the school district, which has enormous operating demands thanks to the area's population growth and extensive educational infrastructure. Another local market analysis drops an even more stunning number. Over the course of a decade, a homeowner here could easily shell out close to $100,000 in property taxes alone. In many states, that amount is enough to purchase an entirely separate rental property. At some point, you have to decide whether the amenities, the schools, and the lifestyle truly justify the idea of essentially rebuying your house every 25 to 30 years through taxes. Before we head to the next city, let me know in the comments whether you think Missouri City's tax rates are reasonable or completely out of control. Number 7. Pflugerville. Leaving the Houston suburbs behind, you make your way west toward Austin and end up in Pflugerville, a once sleepy farming town that has exploded into one of the capital region's fastest-growing suburbs. A decade ago, this place was mostly open fields. Now, it's essentially an overflow zone for Austin's booming tech scene, and both housing costs and property taxes have surged right along with the population. As you crawl through traffic on Toll Road 130, it becomes painfully clear that Pflugerville is no longer a hidden gem. The secret's out, and everyone seems to want a piece of it. That demand has pushed home values into the stratosphere, which might look great if you're selling, but it hits hard when the tax bill arrives. Redfin reports that the median home now sells for over $425,000, a huge jump from just a few years ago. Pair that with an estimated effective tax rate around 2.4%, according to Smart Asset, and you're staring at a yearly tax bill of more than $10,200. What really stings, though, is how aggressively the Travis County Appraisal District has adjusted property values. They've been raising assessments to keep pace with the overheated housing market, meaning that even if the rate doesn't go up, your bill still climbs because your home is suddenly worth more on paper. The Austin Board of Realtors has highlighted that prices in this area recently saw double-digit year-over-year growth, which only intensifies the tax blow. A big chunk of what you pay goes toward the fast-expanding local school district. With so many new families moving in, the district has passed major bond packages to build additional high schools, sports facilities, and other infrastructure, all of which are funded by property owners. TaxRates.org notes that residents in this part of Central Texas pay some of the highest median property taxes in the entire state. Another thing buyers often overlook is that Pflugerville, unlike some older communities, is burdened with substantial new infrastructure debt. Property owners are the ones footing the bill for roads, utilities, and rapid development. It's easy to see a listing that seems affordable price per square foot, but once you factor in the escrow for taxes, your monthly budget takes a serious hit. For many buyers, it creates that classic problem of being house rich but cash poor. The home looks great on paper, but the tax burden eats a huge portion of your disposable income every single month. If you know someone who's planning a move to the Austin area, make sure to share this video with them so they understand what they're really signing up for. Number 6. Manor. Just a short drive east from Pflugerville brings you to Manor, a town often advertised as the budget-friendly alternative to Austin. At first glance, it's easy to buy into that idea. You'll see long rows of shiny new starter homes and think you've cracked the code for finding affordable real estate in Central Texas. But once you start running the numbers, you realize this place is the perfect example of how a lower listing price can disguise a much heavier financial load. Unlike larger cities that have strong commercial tax bases, Manor depends heavily on residential property owners to fund local services. That means homeowners end up carrying most of the weight. According to the Travis Central Appraisal District, some of the newer subdivisions here face total tax rates creeping toward 2.7%, which is enormous compared to national averages. Even if you buy something relatively modest, say a home around $320,000, which Zillow lists as roughly the local median, you're still staring at an annual property tax bill in the ballpark of $8,640. When you think about it, that's a huge percentage of the home's value, especially when you compare it to what buyers pay in other states. A study from the Real Estate Center at Texas A&M points out that fast-growing rural to suburban fringe areas often end up with the highest effective tax rates. Why? Because these communities are literally building out their water systems, sewage lines, roads, and public infrastructure from scratch. In other words, you're paying a premium for the transformation of open farmland into modern neighborhoods. The school district plays a big role, too. In many cases, the school tax alone makes up more than half of a homeowner's total bill. WalletHub already ranks Texas as having the 7th highest property taxes in the country. But people living here in Manor might swear the state should be number 1. And here's one of the more startling realities. When you start calculating the long-term cost of ownership, the numbers get even more intense. Over a 30-year period, it's entirely possible to pay more in property taxes than you originally borrowed on your mortgage, especially if home values and assessments continue to rise. This is one of those markets where the upfront purchase price seems gentle, but the ongoing costs hit hard. If you don't look closely at your total monthly payment, and not just the list price, you can walk straight into a financial headache. If these kinds of breakdowns are helping you get a clearer picture of Texas real estate, take a moment to make sure you're subscribed, that way you won't miss any of the upcoming warnings. Number 5. Cedar Hill. Now we head north into the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area and arrive in Cedar Hill. A city that stands out because of its rolling terrain and surprisingly scenic landscapes, something you don't often find in this part of Texas. You pull into a driveway overlooking the calm water of Joe Pool Lake, and for a moment, it feels like you've traded the noise of city life for a peaceful retreat. But even with the beautiful views and fresh air, one thing you can't escape is the property tax bill waiting around the corner. Cedar Hill delivers a great quality of life, but keeping its parks, trails, and community services in top shape doesn't come cheap. According to the Dallas Central Appraisal District, this area consistently carries some of the highest total property tax rates in the Metroplex, typically landing between 2.5% and 2.6%. Realtor.com places the median home value at roughly $350,000, which means you're committing to nearly $9,000 a year in taxes, and that's before you even factor in insurance or HOA fees. Cedar Hill imposes dedicated taxes for projects like park upkeep and economic development, which further increase your annual costs. The Texas Municipal League notes that cities in this size range often struggle to keep their budgets balanced without leaning heavily on property taxes, and Cedar Hill is a textbook example of that challenge. A report from the Dallas Morning News even flagged the southern suburbs as an area where appraisals have been rising rapidly, so your tax bill may climb faster than the rate of inflation. On top of that, you're also contributing to a large school district tax, whether it's Dallas ISD or the local district, and those rates are not small. Census Bureau data shows that over the past decade, property taxes here have grown faster than median household incomes, which puts pressure on residents' monthly budgets. Sure, the hiking trails are gorgeous, and the backyard views are stunning, but you're paying an annual premium for that natural beauty. Before falling in love with a home that overlooks the lake, make sure your lender runs the full monthly payment with taxes included. The view might be free, but maintaining it definitely isn't. If you appreciate this kind of transparent breakdown, go ahead and hit that like button. Number 4. Lancaster. As you continue weaving through the southern edge of the Dallas metro, you arrive in Lancaster, a historic community that has quickly transformed into a major logistics corridor. Towering distribution centers for giant global companies line the roads, and at first glance, you'd assume all that commercial activity would ease the tax burden on homeowners. Unfortunately, that assumption doesn't hold up once you dig into the numbers. Despite the large industrial footprint, residents here still grapple with substantial property taxes. The Dallas County Tax Office reports that certain parts of Lancaster carry combined tax rates that creep close to 2.7%, which places them among the highest in the county. And while housing here is noticeably cheaper than in the northern suburbs, with Redfin putting the median home value around $280,000, the tax rate quietly eats away at that affordability. On a home priced under $300,000, you're still paying more than $7,500 a year in property taxes. That's an extremely heavy tax-to-value ratio, and it hits first-time buyers especially hard. The Lincoln Institute of Land Policy notes that in areas with unusually high tax rates, property taxes can even push down the real market value of homes because buyers have to calculate the monthly tax cost into what they can afford. The local school district has dealt with financial pressure over the years, which has contributed to tax rates that are necessary just to keep programs and operations afloat. And it's not just the school portion you're paying. Your annual bill stacks city taxes on top of county taxes, hospital district taxes, and college district taxes, creating a long list of line items that add up quickly. According to bestplaces.net, the overall cost of living in Lancaster is relatively low, except for housing-related costs, which are inflated almost entirely by property taxes. This creates a financial trap for new buyers who look only at the principal and interest on their mortgage. Many don't realize that the tax portion of their payment can sometimes rival half of what they're paying toward the loan itself. If you want to protect more of your income from disappearing into these high rates, drop a comment below and let me know what you think about Lancaster's tax burden. Number 3. Denton. A short drive west brings you to Denton, a city that proudly holds its All-America City recognition and has the charm to match. With its wide, tree-lined streets, established neighborhoods, and generously sized lots, it's no surprise families flock here when they want a little more breathing room. But all that extra space comes with a recurring price tag that's anything but small. You might stumble upon a sprawling Texas home, the kind that would cost several $1 million in California, listed here for a fraction of that. But once the tax bill arrives, you're quickly reminded that affordability in Texas has its limits. According to the Dallas Central Appraisal District, total property tax rates in Denton often land between 2.5% and 2.6%. Zillow estimates that the median home value has climbed to around $340,000, which puts your annual tax bill in the neighborhood of $8,800. And SmartAsset regularly ranks this area among the highest in Texas for property taxes relative to household income, meaning the burden hits especially hard compared to what people earn. City leaders have made efforts to bring in more businesses to diversify the tax base, but residential homeowners still serve as the main source of revenue. A report from the Texas Tribune explains that statewide school funding laws push local districts to rely heavily on property taxes, and Denton ISD definitely follows that pattern. So when you look at your escrow statement, remember that you're helping pay for everything from the high school football stadium to performing arts facilities to teacher salaries. It's all coming straight out of your property tax payments. Another eye-opening data point is the link between soaring tax rates and foreclosure trends. In areas where taxes rise quickly, long-time residents, especially retirees living on fixed incomes, can struggle to keep up, sometimes resulting in forced sales or foreclosure. It's a sobering reminder that even if your mortgage is paid off, you never truly own your home if you can't meet the yearly tax demand. If you want to help spread the word about these surprising costs, share this video on your social media and let others know what they're stepping into. Number 2. Coppell. Heading toward the northern edge of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, you arrive in Coppell, an upscale community tucked close to DFW Airport and famous for having one of the highest-rated school systems in all of Texas. As you drive through the neighborhoods, everything looks polished. Perfectly trimmed lawns, spotless parks, late-model luxury cars, and community facilities that feel more like private clubs than public amenities. It all looks flawless, but flawless living comes at a premium. Coppell's formula for maintaining this standard is simple. Combine high-value homes with property tax rates designed to support elite public services. The Dallas and Denton Central Appraisal Districts both show that while the city's own tax rate isn't outrageous, the school district's rate is enormous. That's partly because of the state's recapture program, often nicknamed the Robin Hood system, which requires wealthy districts like Coppell ISD to send a large chunk of their local tax revenue to the state to help fund less affluent districts. Redfin lists the median home price here at roughly $650,000, which is already steep, and even with a total tax rate closer to 2.3%, the bill ends up being massive because the home values are so high. A typical homeowner in Coppell is paying close to $15,000 in property taxes every year. That's about $1,250 a month just in taxes before you even touch your mortgage or insurance. The Comptroller's office shows that Coppell's tax levy per resident is among the highest in Texas. And in a way, it feels like you're paying private school-level tuition, except it's wrapped into your property tax bill so your kids can attend high-performing public schools. WalletHub's long-term investment studies make the situation even more striking. If someone invested $15,000 a year into a broad market index fund over 30 years, the returns could potentially reach into the millions. But in Coppell, that same money is simply the cost of living money that disappears each year with no long-term financial upside. Yes, the amenities are exceptional: gorgeous rec centers, immaculate parks, top-tier extracurricular programs, but the real question is whether those benefits justify a tax bill large enough to buy a brand new luxury vehicle every few years. We're almost at the number 1 spot, so if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time. Number 1. Stafford. Your journey ends back in the Houston metro, in a city that perfectly captures the strange contradictions of the Texas tax landscape. Stafford. On paper, it sounds like a homeowner's dream. People love to point out that Stafford abolished its city property tax way back in 1995, and the idea of paying nothing to the municipality feels almost too good to be true. When you drive through town and see thriving businesses and steady commercial activity, it's easy to assume you've found the ultimate tax haven. But that's exactly where the trap is set and why Stafford lands at number 1 on this list. The disappearance of city taxes creates the illusion of huge savings, but once you dig deeper, the reality hits hard. The school district and county taxes in this area more than make up for the missing city levy, and in some cases push your bill just as high as or higher than cities that do still charge municipal taxes. According to the Fort Bend Central Appraisal District, the Stafford Municipal School District carries one of the highest school tax rates in the entire region. Because the city itself doesn't collect a property tax, the school district has to pick up the slack, and that load gets placed squarely on homeowners. Add in the county tax, plus the drainage district charges, and your total effective rate ends up hovering around 2.2% or higher anyway. And here's the twist that really earns Stafford the top spot. The city's strong commercial development pushes land values up significantly. Zillow estimates the median home value at roughly $325,000, which results in an annual tax bill north of $7,000. Now, on the surface, that number is smaller than the annual tax burden in places like Coppell or Denton, so why is Stafford ranked above them? Because the issue here isn't just the price, it's the psychological bait and switch. You're told you're moving to a city with no property tax, yet you still end up paying a higher percentage of your home's value than residents in most states. The promise looks amazing from a distance, but once you're in the system, you realize the government didn't lower your taxes, they simply shifted the labels around. It gets even more complicated when you factor in that Stafford has the only municipal school district in Texas, giving it a unique taxation structure that keeps rates elevated. Combine that with the fact that Fort Bend County is regularly ranked by SmartAsset as one of the highest property tax burden counties in the country, and suddenly, the no city tax narrative feels like a marketing mirage. The shock isn't just the dollar amount, it's the broken expectation. You arrive in Stafford believing you've outsmarted the Texas tax system, and instead, you discover that there is no escaping the collector. He just sends the invoice under a different department name, and there you have it. The 10 places in Texas where the dream of low-cost living collides head-on with the reality of steep property taxes. Yes, you save money by not paying state income tax, but that advantage evaporates quickly when you're handing over a 5-figure check to the county every single year. If this breakdown opened your eyes, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more straightforward real estate deep dives. Share this video with anyone who can't stop talking about moving to Texas. You might save them from a costly surprise. And before you go, drop a comment telling us which city's tax bill shocked you the most. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next road trip.